Hello everybody and welcome to today's video where we're going to be looking at the collaboration side of GitHub. So as you should know by this point, GitHub is just a cloud hosted version of your code. Now the benefit of that is if you make it public, then anybody that you send the repository link to can then see the exact same thing that you can. They can see all of your code. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing essentially the extra features that you can use beyond your code to aid collaboration. So it's not going to be a particularly long one. It's also going to be a bit informal because we're kind of just looking around this interface. But I just want to make you aware of these things because as you can see in the example that I've got up today, which is one of the projects that my team and I have made, it can be very well used. And personally, I would say that using these features have improved our workflow massively. So I've got up a popular repository here. This is what my team and I have made. And you'll see that it's part of an organization. Now, if I go to the organization, which is called Flight, and Flight's just the name of my company, you can see we have some descriptions here. We have contact email. We have a little README there. We have some pinned repositories, so we have some nice APIs and so on. And then you see all of the different repositories that we have. Now, on GitHub, anybody can create an organization. And then anybody can be added to it. You can see down here we have so many people added to this organization because it's all people who are working on projects within it. So if you want to create an organization, then you can do so by clicking up here and then going to your organizations and then clicking on new organization, and then you choose the free plan. And you can see you have more than enough settings in the free plan. You just name the organization and set some things, do a quick captcha, and you'll have an organization. Now, an organization is essentially just a holder of repositories. So it'll have a collection of repositories, it'll have all the people that can access them, and then you can modify the specific permissions within that repository. But that's really it for the organizations because the repositories are exactly the same whether a repository is owned by an organization or by a person like me here, or you. So let's look at specifically what you can do with a repository. So as for the basic interface that you see when you first load the page, everybody can star a repository, and that's kind of like, it's almost like a like system on GitHub, is to see how many people have liked your repository. And then there's also all of this information down here. Now on your repository, if you go ahead and click this little settings cog, you can see you can change the description, you can set the website, which in our case, this is a repository for a website that my team and I made called MC Utils. And you'll have seen it pop up a few times throughout the course. It basically just holds all of the server jars, banners, stuff, cape stuff, GUI stuff, all that sort of fancy stuff there. But this is a site that my team and I made, and as you can see here, this is the repository hosting the code. It's open source. Anybody can do it. You can literally clone this repository, run a quick couple commands, and then you'll have this site locally, and it's yours. And that's the beauty of open source because it means people can also contribute. So on this menu, you can also set all the topics, so this will make it more searchable through GitHub. And then you can also see down the side here, we have a list of the contributors, which is really cool. You can also see, which actually is really cool, is the languages. So we're using Svelte, which is just a web framework. You see all the languages there. Let's now talk about what I would consider to be the most used part of a GitHub repository, or at least in our case, it certainly is. And that is the issues tab. So it kind of not ideally named. An issue is essentially just a thing, a ticket almost. It's like a ticketing system, but not really where you request help. I mean, in some cases it can be for that, but this is where you maybe create a quote issue to tell them about a bug you've had or give some feedback. As you can see here, we even have suggestions or changes or that sort of thing. So maybe issue is not the best name because it's not always an issue. It's just a point of issue, just something to talk about. You can see we've also added templates. So the way you add a template is through putting a specific thing in the .github folder here. You just follow a specific format. And then what you'll see is, if we go ahead and go to an issue, and I go to create an issue, you'll see we have the option to choose one of these. If I choose one, I then have certain questions. And that's the beauty of a template. So if you really want to go hard into an issue system, it can be a really great way to crowdsource all of the feedback and suggestions and bugs. It's a really good home to all of this sort of stuff. So as I said, you can add the custom issue templates, but you can also add labels. You can separate them by project and that sort of thing. So this is a really good place to get a mass amount of feedback. As you can see here, we have 80 open issues. We have 70 closed issues. So what will happen is you can click on a new issue and then we'll see an actual issue itself. And then I can comment. I can say, yes, we want to do that. Or if we don't want to do that, then I'll click close as not planned. And then when I eventually add the feature, I'll click close as completed. And then I can also assign myself and edit the other settings here. Okay, good stuff. So that is issues. Now that's just kind of more talking collaboration, suggestions and so on. In terms of the actual real collaboration to the source code, let's look at pull requests. So this is another one where I don't think it's really greatly named, but I'll try and explain it as best I can. When you create a pull request, you have the local code, which you're trying to push to the GitHub repository, but you don't have the required permissions. And then what you can do is create a pull request. And what a pull request will be is, as you can see in this example, this person here has added these commits. They've tried to push these commits. So they've pushed them into this pull request. And so now what the people who actually have the permissions in the repository can do is go ahead and click this big button down here, and you can actually merge the pull request. Now we have a review system in place where somebody has to review the code first to obviously check that they haven't put anything dangerous in there. But the point of this is the merge. So when I click this merge here, it will move their code inside of the actual code base. So it will essentially make it so that their local code is now equal to the code base. Essentially the same as if you were locally pushing to GitHub. That's that. It's just another step in the middle so that you can have a bit of collaboration on the code. Say maybe I look at his code here. I look at one of the commits and I think, I don't really like this line of code. So I'm going to add a review. I'm going to say, don't like this code. I'm going to push it back, and then he can make more changes and then update his PR from there. So it's essentially just a middleman. It's a way of approving changes to the code. And then once this PR is accepted, just like how after anyone pushes to the code, then everybody who now wants the code in future will have to pull from the repository so that it's up to date. And then of course you can do all the fun stuff as well. You can assign yourself to his set labels and so on. Okay, so the pull requests are really the star of the show because that's what's going to aid the collaboration the most. As you can see, we have 25 closed pull requests. So if I click on a random one here, my good friend Dan, he helped with some code to fix something or to be the size of the screen or whatever, and that's fine. So you can just see some of the history. So he requested a review and then somebody merged it. I think that was my old account. And then the pull request was closed eventually. And that's just how it works. So somebody clones the repository, they make some changes locally, and then they have to make a PR, and then we look at that PR and we choose whether or not to accept it. That's literally just the process of how people contribute to an open source project. Okay, good stuff. I think we've exhausted pull requests now. That's hopefully enough information about them. And if you're wondering, by the way, about this bit on screen here where we deployed automatically, there's a whole video on automatic deployment, so I'd check that out if I was you. Okay, good. So let's think what else is going to be relevant here on this top bar. I think projects is a massive one, and GitHub has really put in a lot of efforts into projects lately. So what I'm going to do is go to link a project. I'm going to create a new project, and here's where you set the project. Now, a project is essentially, it's like an adaptable spreadsheet. So it's like a container of information which can be shown in a task form. It can be shown in a roadmap form. It can be shown in a Kanban board type form. So if we just jump right in, and you'll see we can just pick a template. So let's just say we're going to choose the first one. Okay, team planning. We'll click create project. So you can see here we have all these different views at the top. So we have this Kanban board view, which is a really fancy way of just saying like a column view where you have different cards inside of here. And then we have the spreadsheet view, and we have another Kanban, and then we have a roadmap view. And then we have a spreadsheet view which says my items. So these are just, we can also create new views. So you see we have a table, so that's a spreadsheet. We have the Kanban board or the roadmap. So you can create any of these three, but then you can also, when you have lots of data in here, you can then choose lots of different things about what data goes where. For example, my items, you can assign things to people. You can see it when you're searching the assigned me here. So you can assign things, you can assign labels, all this sort of stuff. And on bigger projects, this is a really useful way to see. So you can have everybody aligned on one roadmap. You can even link issues. You can set it up so that automatically when an issue is created, it'll appear inside here. So let's just say random issue. It'll appear inside of there. And then when the team's working on it, they can move it there. And then when they're finished, they can move it to done. And you'll see if we go to the roadmap, that's on here, but we need to give it more information about the dates and so on. And if we look at the actual spreadsheet view or the table view, You'll see it's on there too. So this is all fully customizable. You can change all of these different columns, all of the labels and so on. So if you're looking to do a big project and you want to kind of hold yourself accountable to some timings and deadlines and essentially have a central hub for all of your information about the project, then the GitHub projects system is the way to go. What I'll do now is I'll lastly show you the Insights tab. Now this is nothing massively to do with like aiding collaboration, but I think it's a point of interest if nothing else. So if I set the period to, let's say, the past month, we can see we've had 7 active issues, 2 pull requests. You can see the exact amount of lines of code that have been added and deleted. You can see a breakdown of all the stats, and that's just something that I like to look at quite frequently. It's really cool to look at and kind of see people contributing to your repository. So obviously all of this comes with a slight caveat that your project has to be open source and it has to be public. Now for some people that's not ideal. For example, if you're making a super secret plugin, or you're working on a server that you don't want to get leaked, or you're under an NDA, so a contract that you can't share anything, or even if you're just protective of your code, that can't be ideal for you. And in reality, there's no way to fix that. You can't have it open source and have it so that you're protected, really. You can do a little bit of mitigation to that problem. So for example, one thing you can do is create a license. So if I go ahead and go to add file in my repository, I click create new file, and then I type exactly license.md, just like that. You'll see a little button comes up, choose a license template. And if I go have a look, you can see we can choose from a list of licenses. Now each one of these licenses grants whoever chooses to use your code base, whether they clone it or they fork it, or they just straight up copy and paste it, this license will come with them, and so they have to then honor the terms that are set out in whatever license you gave it. So say for example, I just looked at this one, you can see, so they are allowed to use your code for commercial use, they're allowed to modify it, to distribute it, they're allowed to use it for patents, and they can use it privately. But the limitations are also saying that you are not liable for anything that happens to them, and you don't offer any warranty, so that protects you in that sense. So what you can do is you can go through this list and you can find the license that best suits you. But do remember that your code is open source, so there's only so much these licenses can do. If somebody wants to go straight to your code, click here, download zip, take your code, there's nothing stopping them. If you don't want somebody to be able to do that, then head to settings, go down here, change repository, visibility to private. That's all you can do. Licenses exist, and most people in the industry will respect them, especially the kind of long timers, but not everyone will. So don't expect that they will. And then on the back of that, another file that you can add actually to aid the collaboration is a README. So you can see we've got a README here. It's actually called in the files readme.md, just like that. And then it actually takes in markdown input. So for example, if I go to edit the file, you can see how it looks. So just like that, it takes in markdown, so you can write it. And then as you change things, you can preview it as well. Now, the way that a README works is, it's just a file that's in the file structure here. As you can see, it's just a normal file. But if it's in a GitHub repository, then GitHub will pull it out and put it nice and big on the page so that you can see it as well, so that everybody can enjoy it. So for example, you might have all the installation steps here, or the limitations, or a link to the support Discord, anything like that. And there you go, guys. I think that's more than enough information about how to collaborate on GitHub. GitHub is an amazing tool if you can use it properly, and also if you can find the team to do it. So if you don't have people that you feel like you can collaborate with, then come join a Discord server. It's also support Discord, but beyond that, it's a warm community of people that just want to kind of grow together and work on things together. So if you want to see if you can pursue a common interest with somebody, come join the Discord and maybe we can help you guys sort that out. And hopefully you can use some of the knowledge that you learned today in how to collaborate properly with this tool. So we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.